Now we will have a look at the email and ID generation process of an employee. So this is a simple process that we'll be looking at so that we have a general knowledge of what is RPA and how it can be used. So let's go ahead. As you can see here, it's an general form that you can find anywhere, where we'll be entering the data, the simple details of an employee such as first name, last name, date of birth, designation, mobile number and the gender, and then accept the terms right here and then submit it. Doing this will give us the email ID and the employee ID so that it can be used further during the onboarding. So this is a simple process that will be automating, and the inputs that will be needed here will be taken from the user. Let's go ahead and run the code. For now, I have the code implemented, and so I'll just try to run it. Don't be worried about how to implement this and all. I'll be taking you through each and every step. So the first thing that it will ask is, it will ask for the first name. I'm just typing it as Sharath, and it will ask for the last name. I'm just doing that, and it is also asking for the date of birth. Let me give something here. And once that is done, let me give the designation also. Engineer, and then the phone number. So it will also ask me for the gender. Once this is done, it will start launching the website, and it will wait for it to load, and then once that is done, it should start entering the data. As you can see, it has started entering the data here, the same data that we have provided to it. And once it click on submit, here are the few details that have been generated from the system, which is nothing but email ID and employee ID. So these are few things that the bot was able to get from the screen and display it to us, and this can be further utilized somewhere else. So you can even email it to the user, or you can also enter it into some other downstream applications. So that was a quick demo of how RPA can be used at a very beginner level and what are its benefits. This was a demo where I just tried to give a basic understanding of what RPA can do in real time. So it can start opening the website, it can start entering the data, and will give out the information whatever is needed for the further processing. Let's start creating the project that we have just now seen. The first thing that we will do is launch UiPath, and then, because ours is a simple process, we will just select the process and give a name to the process or the project that we are going to develop. So because it's our first bot that we are implementing, I'm just keeping it as bot 1, and the process is to generate the employee ID and the other one is email ID, and this is the path where it will be saved. And this description, you can give description or you can leave it blank. And then our preferred language would be VB.NET. So I'm just clicking on create. What this will do is it will create a workspace for us with some default dependencies, and this is ready for us. So as we have seen earlier, these are few of the default Activities are the dependencies being added to the newly created project, and this would be project.json for us, where we can actually set up the project settings and all that. And then we have the main.xaml. This is the place where we will be adding our activities. As told already, activities are nothing but the building blocks for our particular project. As we have seen, this is the site that we are going to automate, where we are having different fields like employee ID, official email, and first name and last name and all that, and then we will click on submit. Right, to achieve all these activities, we will be taking the help of click activity, open browser to open the browser on the screen and all that. So let's go ahead and do that. Now let's start with our first requirement that we have at hand. The first thing is we have to enter the data into this particular fields. For that, what we can do in UiPath is we have an activity called type into, which will help us to type some data onto the screen. So we'll just try to explore this activity a little bit. These are few of the properties that this particular activity has. The first one is canyon error, which is nothing but even if this particular activity fails, this process doesn't stop. It will move on to the next activity. And then comes delay after and delay before. So here, this particular activity means that if you want to add some delay before you type into something on the screen, you can add that. And if you want before or after, it's the same. You'll add some delays right here, and this is in milliseconds. And then this is the display name, and this is the target. Target contains selectors, timeouts, and wait for ready. This is something that I'll just show you soon. This is text which you'll be able to enter on the screen by using this selector. And this is private. If you don't want it to be logged into the odd logs, this particular activity, you can select this. And this is activate. If your screen or the UI element that you're working on is in the background, it will be taken to the front if it's checked. Then if it's alter, if disabled, as you can see, if you hover, see anything you feel there is something new coming up, you can just read at the description of it and you'll be able to infer something about that particular property. As here you can see, it says if selected, the simulated type is executed even if the specified UI element is disabled. Sometimes on the screen we find few are not editable. Okay, in that case, this particular property will help us set the value for that particular field. And then comes click before typing. If there's a field you want to click on that and then go ahead and type something, this option will be definitely helpful. And then comes delay between the case. If there's a word called Sharath and you want the gap between yes and H and then A, and in that case you can just have a value here. And then comes deselect at end. So the use of this is like when you're performing simulate clicks, it just indicates that that particular thing is done, that particular action has been completed, and we can proceed with the next one. And then comes empty field. Empty field is nothing but it will help us clear the field before we are about start entering the data. And then comes send window messages and simulate type. This will help us perform actions in the background. Okay, you don't have to have the screen available on the screen. It can just start entering even if the screen with which we are working is at the back end. Okay, fine. Once that is done, as you can see, as soon as I have dragged this particular activity, it shows me an error. So there are few fields that are needed for this activity to start working. So based on this error and the properties right here, it expects some value here. I'll just click Sharath and then I'll click somewhere, and this error has gone. Okay, so for this to be entered exactly in the first name field, I have to tell the bot that it has to go right here and enter this text here. But if you see, as a human, I can see that it's the first name and I have to enter Sharath here. But how does the bot know it? Because it doesn't have eyes, it actually needs help here. So in this case, what we will try to do is go back to our code and we will indicate on screen. This is the option that you have to select, and it will just highlight. As you can see, it is highlighting something on the screen. What does that mean? So every element, if it's first name, last name, the submit button, any element on the screen has its own name, has its own attributes. Based on that, the UiPath will be able to detect that particular field on the screen. If I just select this and go back to the selectors property, you'll be able to see it has fetched few attributes from the screen. What are they exactly? It says this particular action has to be done, has to be performed on a page which has a title this. As we can see, it has the title this. Okay, fine, till that it's clear. And next, what it has to do, it has to find web control with ID fname. So what does fname here mean? I'll just go right here and I'll do inspect element. This is just to show you how exactly it is able to fetch the elements. Then I'll just select this symbol, arrow here, and I'll click here. If I do that right, you'll be able to see this is exactly something that the UiPath was able to fetch, so that it can identify the first name on the screen. This first name was given an ID called fname and it is of type text. Based on this, next time whenever you ask UiPath to enter some data on this particular field, it will be able to enter it. I'm just closing it. And then this is of tag input. This is completely fine. If you're not sure if it is the exact element, you can try to highlight it. So it's showing the first name right here. Once that is done, so our activity is ready. So we are ready to enter the data onto the screen. I'll just run this particular project to see if it's working. As you can see, it has entered that particular text there. So that's done. Similar to that, we'll try to type the text for all other values too. So I'm just dragging this type into again. I'll indicate last name and then I'll just enter last name here, and this is done. Sorry, again I'll do the type into and I'll again indicate the date of birth. As you can see, it already gives the display name. You can just modify it if you want. You can make it to just L name, which is last name. Date of birth can be something like this. And then let's take another type into. then designation, then its mobile number. So this is how we'll be able to enter the data onto the screen. Let's look at it. So this time, as Sharath is already there and we didn't select empty field option and type into, it has just re-entered it without clearing it. So that was about how to use type into. Now the next step that we have to do is we have to select the gender and also accept the policy terms for this particular thing, and then we have to click on submit. To achieve this particular thing, let's go back to UiPath, and as we can't be using type into for this particular selection, we have another set of activities that can be used. Let me take you through that. We have an activity called check, which comes under control. I'll just drag this and you'll be able to see, similar to type into, this activity also has its own set of properties. Few of them are similar to type into, as we have seen earlier: continue on error, delay after, delay before, and display name. Few of them again are the same, like timeout, selector, wait for ready. Wait for ready, I think I've missed it last time. Yeah, wait for ready is a particular property where you can actually mention when this particular action should be triggered. So it should be triggered if the application is completely ready, or it's just available for interaction, or none of them. And then there are options which give you action type. It's check type for us. If we want to check, we can give this. If we just want to uncheck it, we can do this. And we also have toggle. This option will help us move from check to uncheck. Okay, yeah. So suppose to keep it simple, like if it's selected, it will just do unselection. If it's unselected, unchecked, it will do check activity there. So then alter if disabled, even if this is not available on the screen, it will just do it. When I say just do it, I mean it will perform that in the backend. And that was about this activity. Let's spy it. So I'm selecting the mail option here, and let's look at this selector. Keep in mind, the selector is an important component in RPA because all this automation works completely on this elements, based on this elements. So this is a simple selector we have been getting, but in the future we might expect some complex selectors which we have to start fine-tuning to get a stable selector. I'll just definitely let you know what is a stable selector and how to modify this particular selectors based on our requirement. So I'll just try to highlight it. It is highlighted, and as we can see, it's a radio button of type input. And if you just want to see the other parameters available, you can just click right here and you will see there is this is something. You can also launch this by using this option right here, or you can just click the option that I have just selected. There are other options also available to us. One is AA name, which differs it from female and male. I have also selected that option right now so that it will be able to select only male and not the female option when I give male. And I'll just check if it's valid. Yeah, this particular selector is valid, and I can again highlight it. Yeah, it's coming up. Fine. So I'll just click on save. Now moving back, I can also click on OK. So this check option is done. The next thing that we want to perform is click on this accept and then submit. So again, I'll try to drag another check activity and I'll indicate on screen. This time I'm clicking right here. If you check the selector for this, it will be checkbox. Which checkbox? There are different checkbox available, right? So I'll again open the UI Explorer and I will select which particular thing, I don't know, right? So I'll just select parent ID also if needed, if it's making it more stable. Let me highlight. Yeah, it's there. So it's not constant, it's not written on any stone that you have to use parent ID, you have to use type, or you have to start using tag attributes. It completely depends on your knowledge, your understanding. I can directly go ahead and not use this particular thing. Okay, I can just start using this activities, but I feel maybe adding parent class would be more efficient. Okay, our parent ID, if I add it, it will be more stable. So this is completely in your hand. So don't be confused about he is selecting this particular attributes and I'm not even aware of which are important and which are not. Okay, that's completely fine because it depends on the application and the developer completely on his experiences. So let me save it. So we are also done with this and this. Let's also click on submit now. So coming back to the process for submit, we have an activity called click. It's available here. If it's not for you because you might have not used it, you can just type click here and drag this activity and then indicate on screen. Yeah, before moving on to indicate on screen, let's look at the properties of it. These are similar to whatever we have earlier, like continuous error, delay before, after, click type. Which click do you want? You want a single click, double click, and all those options, and you want the left button, right button, or the middle one. And these are similar to whatever we have seen earlier, and these are also the same. Alter if and much of it are same, like you want to with which cursor position you want to click on the screen and all these things. So let's quickly click on indicate on screen and just indicate the submit button, and let's go and select this particular option to see what has happened. The AA name is submit, and then the parent ID that I got is this, and it is of button type, which is true. If I highlight it, we'll be able to see it this. So you don't have to highlight every time you spy something on the screen. It's just for you to understand it is why I'm showing you. You can just rename it because it's not human readable. If someone comes up and see what exactly is this, they don't understand it. It's good practice to rename this particular display names. Oh, sorry. That gives us a more readable code, readable flow. So we are done with this particular. So we are done with the whole workflow where we start entering the data, the data entry flow. I'll just run it once to show you if it's working. As we can see, it has started entering all the data that we have provided to the bot. It has selected mail, it has selected the terms, and it has submitted it. If I go back to the page, right, there are few things that has been generated after we clicked on submit. One thing is employee ID and the other one is official email ID. So we were successfully able to generate employee ID and official ID by entering the data that was given to bot and by clicking on submit. So now once we are done with the data entry and selecting the terms and submitting it, we are left with fetching this particular values over here. One is employee ID and one is official mail ID. So these are the final things that we actually need. So right here, what we will do is we will write the code or the workflow to fetch these particular things. Going back to UiPath. So this was for submit. This was for checking the UI elements on the screen. And now similar to this, to fetch some data from the screen, we have other set of activities. One of them is get text activity. I'll just drag this right here, and similar to whatever we have done earlier, I'll try to spy that particular element. So I'm right here. I'm able to select the employee ID here. So I'll just click over there, and it says I'm fetching get text of employee ID. Okay, I'll go right over to the properties and we'll just look at it. So it is continuous error, which we know, and then we get the inputs, which is nothing but the selector, the timeout. The basic timeout for all of these particular activities is 30 seconds, which is a default one. So it will, what does that mean? So it will, this activity will wait for 30 seconds for that UI element to appear on the screen. So if it's not loaded, if that button is taken off from that particular website, it will wait for it, say 30 seconds, or if the application is not being loaded because of some network issue, so even in that cases it will wait for max 30 seconds. And this can be increased. As you can see, it's 30 seconds here, but we can also make it to 60 seconds. So the value here is milliseconds. So based on that, you can provide whatever value is needed for that particular process. And then wait for ready is something that we know. And yeah, this is right here is something that we didn't actually gone through earlier. This is output. What does output mean? So whatever value this activity was able to fetch from employee ID, right here, it should be saved somewhere, right? So else what is the use of fetching it? So in this case, what we can do is we can save this into a variable. If someone who don't know variable, I'll just give a brief explanation about it. Variable is nothing but, suppose my variable name is myvar. Myvar is nothing but a container into which you can store something. It can be integer, it can be string, it can be boolean, or it can be anything for that matter. Okay, so for now you can think of variable as a container into which you will save something. So that is what we are doing right here. So I'll just create a variable. So right here at the bottom of any workspace that you have, you will have variable, you will have arguments, you will have imports. For now, let's go ahead and use this variables panel and create one variable. So it can be, the naming convention should be such that it is human readable. So if I just go right here, we are fetching employee ID. So let me give employee and then ID. And the type of it is string. So what exactly is string? So if I just single click here, I'll get a number of variable types. Right now our variable type is string. String is nothing but an alphanumerical value, and you can also select boolean, which corresponds to true and false, and then we have int, which is nothing but a numerical value 1 2 3 and and then you have object, and then you have data table. Data table is nothing but when you actually read a particular Excel, right, it contains rows and columns, so that is nothing but a data table. And then array of strings or array of ints, array of booleans, whatever. And then you are also given a facility where you will be able to use all of this particular data types. Okay, though you'll not be using every one of them in your project, but based on your requirements you can start using them. And most of the times there are only few particular type of variables that you'll be using throughout your projects. All this, in general, UiPath supports all the data types that are being supported by UiPath, because this UiPath itself is developed based on .NET Core. So that was how we were able to create our variable. In the similar way, let's go ahead and spy the email ID field. So as I have shown you, okay, if you are looking for a particular application to be on the screen and it's not there, create that space in between where you will be able to again click on the application to make it available on the screen. You can use the option which is nothing but Windows F2. Okay, this is what is mentioned there. It will give a 5 seconds frame in which you will be able to get that application to the screen. So I'll just go ahead and spy this too, and it is also right here. And once this is there, I'll just save it. And right now, last time we have created a variable from here, but we also have a chance to create it right here. I'll just click Ctrl K and then do employee email and then click on enter. So there are two ways to create a variable. One is through this particular panel, variable panel, and another way is right from here by clicking Ctrl K, which is a shortcut to create the variable. So we are done with this particular fetching of the text from the screen, and let's do one thing. We will display them onto the screen. We'll use message box, and I'll just pass this values to it. One was employee ID and another one was employee email. So here I have used two message boxes to show you the fetched values, but we can also do it in a single message box. I'll just show you this particular thing in the future lectures. Now what we will try to do is, because we are aware that from the moment we click on submit and by the time we'll be able to fetch the values, any application will definitely take some time to generate these values. And if we directly after clicking on submit start fetching the values, there are chances that we might get empty values on the screen, which is not at all desired value. So in this case, what we can do is, you can search for delay by typing delay right here and then enter time span. For us, let's take 1 second. This refers to seconds, this refers to minutes, and this refers to hours. Maybe let's even take 2 seconds before we start fetching the values from the screen. Let's go ahead and run this code. So as you can see, the bot was able to enter the data onto the screen and it has clicked on submit. And oh, we didn't get the value on the screen. and we have got this value. Fine. So what do you think the reason was? I know what's the reason here. The reason is that I just forgot to actually submit the value here. The variable though we have created here, but I didn't give this value right here. I didn't provide it. So I just give employee ID. The reason why I just did that particular thing is most of the times what happens is we create some variables right here and then just don't submit these values. It used to happen to me at the beginning of my career, so I just thought of telling it to you, rather showing it to you. Okay, and then we just go on doing some debugging and we get frustrated thinking something is going wrong, and but it's the simple things that we have to take care of. And this is done. Yeah, by now it should be able to fetch the values that we require. Let's go ahead and again run it. Yeah, so right now it's doing the same thing that it has performed earlier, but as we can see, it will give out the employee ID and this particular mail ID. So this was about the complete flow where we were able to fetch the values from the screen. And let's see few other things in the next lecture. We are almost done with the project, but we are left only with few of the improvements to the code. As we can observe right here in this activities, we have the values directly given to this particular activities. And these are also known as hard-coded values because we are directly giving them and not retrieving it from anywhere else. So in this case, what we can do is we can try to improve the process and make it more dynamic, because in real time we'll be getting the data most of the times from the databases or from the users or from any email or any other files for that matter. Because it's never going to be hard coded for us in any of the process, let's make this a dynamic entry. To achieve that, we have an activity called input dialog box. You can just search for input and it will show up there, the left hand panel, and then you can just drag it. Here there are few parameters it will ask for. The first one is password. If you are asking for a password, this has to be checked so that it doesn't display on the screen. It will be masked, okay, kind of. It will be in terms of stars or asterisks. And this label is nothing but the one that you want to actually display in that particular input dialog box. So let's say, please provide first name. So this is something that I have given right here. You can also enter this from this window. And then this is options. Options is when we want to provide some set of options to the users when they are actually selecting, giving some input, then we can use this. So this will be soon looking at. And then we have title. Title is nothing but the topmost layer of this particular input dialog box. So let's give input here. Now we have something here which is the output, and this is nothing but whenever a user provides you with an input, you are the bot that has to be stored into a variable so that it can be used further in our project. So we have to do nothing right here. We just have to create a variable like we have done earlier, Control K, and then first name would be the variable name, and then enter. Done. So this has created a variable for us. You can also cross check it here, first name. Once this is done, So for us right now, if we run the project or the process, I'm just saving this. It should ask me for the this particular first name input. And another thing, quickly we will just remove this hard-coded value and replace it with the variable that we have just now created. Okay, so this is also created here. I'm just saving it and let me run it once to see what happens. As you can see, it is asking for the input, which is the first name. Let me type X, Y, Z and then click on OK. As you can see, it has taken the value that I have given to it from the input dialog box. The rest of the values are as expected, like they are hard coded. So we have just covered the topic. Similar to this, we can also do the same for other activities. So we have to receive it for last name. It would be last name. I've already created a variable, so I'll just take that. It's last name, and here it should be last, and then again I'll copy it and paste it. This time we should be asking for date of birth, designation, mobile. So let me take 3 of this. 1, 2. Okay, fine. So the first last name, and then comes the date of birth. Please provide DOP. And here itself, we don't have to go here and create a variable. We can also create a variable here. I'm just taking this off, and then Control K, DOP, and enter. So this will ask for the date of birth, and then this should be designation, and we'll remove this. Designation, and then last one was phone number, right? Phone number, and here also we'll create a variable. So this is the camel case where a variable's name starts with small letter and then the other word will start with a capital letter. This has to be followed when creating variables. So we have created our set of variables. Let's go ahead and replace them here. This would be last name, and this would be date of birth. As you can see, sometimes it is giving us suggestions and sometimes it is not. So you don't have to actually type everything here. You can just take the benefit of IntelliSense. If you don't find the suggestions as you type along, just click on Control and space and you will get the suggestions available for you. You can just select these things from here. And then again, I'll just do Control space and it is giving me the suggestions. I'll just scroll through it and I'll take phone number. You can just delete this. Yeah, we are done with this particular details. Now the other things we are left with are the check boxes. Here now it's male, but in the future it can be female also. For this, what we can do is, as there can only be few options available for gender, we'll make them as options. To achieve this, one thing that we can do is we can take the help of if condition, and then we'll pass on the value. But where will we get this value from? Exactly. We'll go back to here and then take input dialog box again. This thing and just drag it. This time the title would be again input and label will be please select the gender, because we are this time allowing him to select from the given inputs. And then this option is something that we'll be using. I'll just enlarge this thing. Yeah, you have to open the brackets, open the flower brackets, and then in double quotes male, and here female. As you can see, sorry, as you can see, we have provided an array to the input dialog box. So this time it will show up this particular options and the user can select one of them. And let's save this in a variable called gender. As now we have the value of gender with us, we'll go to the bottom, and here we know the value of gender is available in gender variable. If it's equal to male, then this is what this flow is telling us. If gender is equal to male, then we have to perform something else, we have to perform something else. So let's take this block to here. You have to just drag it, okay, anywhere it is, and just drag it. So we have it for the male, and what if it's female? Then we will also spy that particular element. I think we already have it in the recent ones. Going here and I'm just indicating again. Let me select the female. Just confirm if it's female here. Yeah, it is selecting the female. Okay, that's done. So this should be able to select female when it is female and when male when it is male. So this was about preparing the project in such a way, or implementing a project in such a way that it is very dynamic. I'll just try to run it. Before that, let's go back to the page and click on new registration so that it clears up everything, and go back to your code and just run this time. As soon as we run it, it should be asking for the first name, which is Suresh, and then the next name, last name is Reddy, and then date of birth is 09/08/1990 maybe. Okay, and then designation, which is engineer, and okay. As you can see, it's clearly understandable that it is taking input from the user and will be going to enter that exact information on the form. Yeah, as we can see, it is how the options will look like on the screen. Let me select male and then go ahead. So it has started entering the data that we have provided to it. It is selecting male and accepted the terms, and now it should display the results. Here it is, the employee ID, which is this, official mail ID, which is this. So that is how we were able to implement a small bot which will be able to do the data entry part for us. Here, though we have taken the input from the user, in real time, we'll be taking the input from the databases, from mails, from SharePoint, or from any other files like PDF, Excel, or text files, most of the times. And the output that we were able to display on the screen, most of the time it will be sent through an email, or it will be pushed to some upstream applications, or it will be
like pushed to some database. That's something that we'll be exploring soon. And one thing to remember whenever you're trying to launch this website or do the data entry, don't forget to launch this website manually and keep it on the screen. Because it's our first bot, I didn't mention how to launch a website from UiPath. That's something that we'll be seeing soon in the next project. So keep this on the screen and start automating your process, and you will have the code available in the next lecture for you. Please make use of that. And if you are stuck somewhere, take help from that. Try to compare the code that you have implemented and the one that I have implemented. Maybe that might help you to understand your mistake and you'll be able to fix that particular issue going forward.